Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Rafiq Iqbal, and in today's show we'll be deliberating on the Pakistan-India tensions and of course what we saw in South Asia and a diplomatic victory for Pakistan. Not just a diplomatic victory, a victory on the military front as well. A decisive response that they had given to the enemy, and of course Pakistan Armed Forces have given a nation, a very proud and brave nation, another moment to be very proud of their armed forces, and of course at the same time given the enemy a response that they're going to remember for decades to come. Of course, we saw how there was war hysteria and war jingoism, how the Indian media, all the anchors, all the analysts there were very loud. But when it was about the facts on ground and how Pakistan responded, we saw criminal silence on the Indian part. And of course, how the Indian masses are also raising questions with regards to the failed policies of the BJP regime. And we still see criminal silence, the BJP regime not answering to their people, the Indian media not giving answers to their own masses, and of course we know how Pakistan had been raising the issue of India's illegal actions, Indian sponsored terrorism since long. The world community is also taking cognizance of that. We know Five Eyes, how they also have evidence of India's involvement in extrajudicial and extraterritorial illegal activities on their soil as well. And the world is questioning India's misinformation campaigns, how irresponsible their media was, and the communal politics that the BJP has pursued since long, which has not only plunged the Indian society into catastrophe and chaos, but is destabilizing the whole region at large, a region which is currently focused on connectivity and progress. And of course, we know after that, Pakistan's Foreign Office has also condemned the statements that are being given from the Indian side, and a strong response was given by Pakistan's Foreign Office. We also know that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, as this marks a diplomatic win for Pakistan as well. We saw how there were a lot of countries in the world that stood by Pakistan and condemned India's aggression and its aggressive posture. We also know how Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is on a four-nation visit and of course marks a very significant importance in Pakistan's diplomatic landscape. We'll be deliberating on all these different aspects with regard to tensions that we saw in South Asia. In the studios, we've been joined by senior analyst Farooq Patafi. Along with that, we've been joined by geopolitical analyst Raja Faisal. And via video link, we've been joined by Jia Baloch, former ambassador. Thank you all for your time and being part of the conversation, gentlemen. Starting off with Ambassador Baloch, of course, we saw how it was the peak of heightened tensions in South Asia, but of course, a win for Pakistan that came out, not just diplomatically, both militarily and diplomatically. And of course, Pakistan's media also being praised by the international community, how it stood by journalistic norms and only reported the facts on ground, whereas on the other side, we see Indian media acting as a hub of misinformation and propaganda. Your comment on how the situation has developed and how the world community has reacted to these developments.
Thank you. I think this 4 days conflict between Pakistan and India has changed the complete profile of the two countries. In fact, India stands exposed on several fronts. And I'll first of all look at its military front. It was supposed to be a regional power, which was supposed to be the vanguard of the emerging so-called front against China. It was supposed to be the guardian of the Western or any anti-Chinese alliances in the Asia-Pacific. But now we see that despite being 10 times much bigger in terms of numerical strength from its neighbor, Pakistan, it stands totally exposed, not only in terms of technology, not only in terms of how they handled their equipment, which is like, in fact, their own people have said it, that they simply do not have the technological know-how. They don't have the competence to handle these equipment that they have. In fact, during the conflict, I heard one of the Indian Air Force officer now who works in, I think he teaches at the University of Chicago, that he said that those 4 years, they're especially, he was talking about the Air Force, 4 years, they learn either become half literate in terms of technology. So I think their capacity to train their manpower and their institutional strength to train their people has been exposed. Then is the bigger question that a country which aspires to be a global power, aspires to be a Security Council member, wages a war without thinking on a neighbor which has a nuclear capacity and capability. So look at the danger, potential danger in this war. And then what were the objectives? None at all. We want to punish Pakistan. We want to kill those terrorists. But so we wage war and we violate this sovereignty. So I think there was this strategic muddle in the leadership that they could not think but just go on a fighting spree. And unfortunately, I think what has happened to the Indian, and I've been thinking as to why this muddleness, why this confusion. The problem is that for the past several years now, I would say, but at least for the past 3 to 4 years, their entire edifice of state, their entire edifice of policy, whether it is economic or it is defense or security or its foreign relations, is based on a false narrative and lies. And unfortunately, what happens? And propaganda. And what happens with the too much of propaganda, that the propagandist himself or herself, or they themselves become the victims of their own self-propaganda and they start believing it. What we call, in the technical terms, the echo chamber of their own propaganda. So I think the Indian leadership was really caught in its own echo chamber. They started believing the anchors who had nothing to lose except for perhaps a job if the rating go down. But they have put the future of their country at stake. The future and security of over 1.5 billion people in South Asia, the peace in South Asia, even, I would say, if, God forbid, it really got out of control, the peace of the world at stake. So I think there are some flaws. They really got to step back from the top to the bottom, Modi and his company. And let me dare add, the time has come for the Indian thinking, sane people to get rid of this maniacs, these warmongers. Otherwise, they will leave their country, which has a great potential to, and they could play a positive role as a big country. But what have they done is, look what Modi was saying in Gujarat. That is how a responsible leader says. Is that a statesmanship? Is it a statement which one would expect from a country which aspires to be a greater nation? No, not at all. Highly irresponsible, highly dangerous, I must say that. So what do they expect for Pakistan or any other neighbor to sit back and wait for them to come? No, not at all. We obviously, so there will be action reaction. These are kind of implications I'm referring to. Of course, Pakistan is, alhamdulillah, already ready, because we know, and we knew this from 1947 and the creation of Pakistan, as these are kind of people. And in fact, it was again the great leaders like Quaid-e-Azam who could foresee what is hidden in their smiles, in their secularism. There's a beast which has come out. So I think we are dealing with a beast, unfortunately. I'm using strong words, but that's how the reality of India is. In fact, Indian people are dealing with that. Kashmiri people are dealing with the beast, unfortunately. The Muslims, minorities, the Christians in India are dealing with not the normal people. Now their own analysts are saying that on the evolutionary ladder, perhaps in terms of cognitive capabilities, we are going down, the Indians, because they can't think straight. So I think I'm really worried about them and worried about South Asia. But we got to be prepared as a country. We unfortunately share border with them. Yes, Rafael.
Ambassador Baloch, and very unfortunate indeed. Once secular country brought down to a saffronized dictatorship. Farooq Padafi, I'd like your comment. As we know, the Indian media, how BJP leadership, how they were very aggressive, but after the response that they got on the military front, we saw how they panicked as well. But even despite that, we see that aggressive posture even continuing, and that misinformation and propaganda against Pakistan continuing even now.
Right. Thank you very much, Rafi, for the question. I think that first of all, I just wanted to correct something that you said, although that was said in total innocence. You said that once secular country now actually has become this. There is enough history to prove that India's founders never thought India as a secular country. The secularism part was only a cover, because at the start they actually adopted Ashok Chakra rather than Gandhiji's charkha for their flag. So that was a big giveaway that they wanted some kind of militant religiosity to prevail in the country. They had their soft Hindutva, and then naturally every rhetoric eventually culminates towards the worst, and that is exactly what has happened. That is not all. Since this crisis started, I have been actually cutting a lot of slack to Narendra Modi, thinking that he is riding a tiger, and because of that tiger he cannot actually dismount, otherwise he will be devoured. But he keeps on issuing these statements. Sometimes they are hilarious, but yesterday it was a downright abusive. So we have to actually focus on that as well, because yesterday, speaking at Bhuj, Gujarat, he said something which was incredibly, unimaginative and offensive. He is now talking to people of Pakistan, not the state of Pakistan, and he then says, "Roti khao, aman se raho, warna meri goli to hai," right? Which would roughly translate as "eat bread." And stay in peace, otherwise I have got my bullets for you, right? With that kind of language, I started wondering, why would he bring up roti or bread for that matter? So I was reminded of a term that was quite in vogue in Nazi Germany, and it was Unitsu Esser, or useless eaters. And they used to actually use it for people they needed to dehumanize. That all they do is eat and nothing else. So here, by making life and food conditional to average Pakistani's cooperation, Modi ji is once again trying to dehumanize Pakistanis and average Pakistani. It should worry everybody, because in their history, in their books, there is enough of Nazi propaganda involved to worry about the kind of psychology that is being informed by the kind of philosophy that destroyed millions of lives. Now, India's problem right now, Rafi, is that there are, while it has, as you pointed out, it has offended Five Eyes, there isn't a country which today's India hasn't actually offended, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to talk about Three Eyes that they seem to have grown of their own, right? The first one is inefficiency. The way they kept on spending their monies on defense equipment, and the way they could not actually produce or get whatever they wanted, that actually proves that they are extremely inefficient. The second one, as seen by their Prime Minister now and their media earlier, is incoherence, that India is incoherent as well. And finally, India, by acting without evidence or without any proof or clear objectives in mind, what India has proven to the world, what we had actually, the impression we had sent out about ourselves back in 1999 when we had this Kargil debacle. At that time, we showed to the world, or at least the world actually thought, that we are irrational actors. Now, India seems to have sent that message. And that is something that put us in a doghouse for 20 years, despite repeatedly sacrificing in the war and terror and trying to do our best to prove that we are good and we have changed. The world did not listen till the time India did not undertake this kind of irrational action and broke the spell. Now, what I think, and regarding where India is at right now, I think the kind of doghouse they have actually built for themselves is going to continue even beyond 20 years, because they seem to have annoyed everybody. They seem to have actually, even in their best allies, like Canada, America and others, they have actually abused the trust that was there by going on their turf and killing their citizens, right? So with that kind of state of affairs, India is in a very sorry state, but unfortunately, because the Prime Minister that actually created all that debacle still is in power, it poses a serious threat to the world at large.
Definitely, and when you play with fire, you have to face the heat. For Raja Faisal, your comments, as of course, when we talk about the aggressive posture, it's not just their media, it's not just statements from their Prime Minister, but we've also seen in Pakistan, the DGISPR has highlighted, the country's security structure has highlighted this, the Indian-sponsored proxies that have been activated after this whole tensions and after the ceasefire took place, and how they are creating havoc in Pakistan, how they are trying to destabilize Balochistan province. Of course, the security forces, they remain alert, but we see this aggressive posture from India, and of course, it's not just the statements and how they're sponsoring terrorism as well. An end to this, to of course promote stability in the region and to stop this this hatred that Modi has been pushing since so long.
Yeah, Rafe, when we talk about Modi's politics or BJP's, the current BJP's politics, it revolves around hate, it revolves around hatred against Pakistan, against Kashmiris, against Muslims of India. That is why we have been seeing that they came up with the Citizens Amendment Act, and then all of the mosques they want to get rid of. The only reason behind it is that, of course, they want to tell the world that this country is a Hindutva country. It has nothing to do with secularism, as you have earlier mentioned, and secularism of India was actually murdered by Nathuram Godse when he murdered Gandhi himself. And when we talk about today's India, I think BJP and Modi, they are doing a great service to their own people in terms of stabbing their own foot, and the kind of narratives they are coming up, be it the diplomatic channels they want to try. I mean, just compare both of the countries, Pakistan's diplomatic mission and then of course Indian diplomatic mission. Indian diplomatic mission, what are they doing? I mean, they are actually running a campaign, a smear campaign against Trump, the very Trump who actually got them out of this fuss, and the very US administration that actually was contacted by Jaishankar seeking the resolve to the problem, because the time when they called US, at the very time they were facing Pakistan's missiles, and Pakistan's missiles, they were creating a havoc in India at that time. When it comes to their campaign, I mean, their campaign is all about, they are going to every country and they are running a smear campaign against Trump, feeling that there might be some sympathies for them just because majority of the countries, they do not like Donald Trump, which is not correct. Because every country, democratic country of the West, they respect the democracy, and they respect the fact that Donald Trump was actually chosen by the largest chunk of the people of America, and of course they have to respect it. They might differ by the opinions of Donald Trump, but they will be, of course, accepting his rulership. And when it comes to Pakistan, Pakistan has gone to its friendly countries, of course China, then Turkey, then Azerbaijan, then all of the rest of the countries. Pakistan is getting in touch with them. Pakistan is going to the Western countries. Pakistan is going to the Americans as well. Reason being, we have been, since the day one, since 22nd of April, Pakistan maintained that Pakistan seeks a peaceful resolve rather than heading towards the war, which actually gives a very very dignified kind of position to Pakistan on the larger scale in terms of the global stage I'm talking about. And Pakistan is being recognized as a country that believes in peace, that believes in not heading towards the war. And in the diplomatic atmosphere, of course, India has lost everything. When it comes to, in his own country, I mean, today Modi is seen busy going place to place and claiming that he has done excellent service in terms of hitting Pakistan's targets, and then Pakistan's targets were actually to him. He wanted to show it to the world that he has actually hit the terrorist camps, whereas Pakistan has been since the day one showing that kids as young as 2 years old, they were the victims of the heinous crime conducted by India at the orders of Modi, who has been known to the world as Butcher of Gujarat, because his politics actually started at the larger scale with this term, because he was the one who was behind the butchery that took place in Indian Gujarat. When it comes to overall morale situation of the forces on the both sides, I can bet any Indian politician, any Indian analyst who can face us, come face to face, and if they can agree to me that they can airborne their own fighter jets in the air with the intent of targeting Pakistan again, because that phenomenon is murdered brutally by Pakistan. Why? Because Pakistan's Air Force, they have shown an excellent mirror to the capabilities and to the tech friendliness of the Indians, and tech friendliness, and when it comes to technique, when it comes to the preparedness, war preparedness, India has lost miserably. And though it's not only me who's talking about it, of course the whole world is talking about it. And when it comes to their military, they couldn't even safeguard their S-400s. I mean, S-400 was the most expensive the most expensive barrages they had in the not the garbage, but of course the bucket they had. Of course now it is a garbage for them, but the kind of the weaponry they had, it was outclass in terms of technology, in terms of the money they spent. Of course it was very expensive, and they have brought a very bad name to all of the companies that have been creating these wonders in the past, be there Russians, be there French, be there Israelis, all of them. They had a confidence in their products, but when it reaches to India, of course it becomes garbage, and Pakistan has proven it. And overall, of course, if we look at both of the countries, morale of Pakistan is sky high, and when it comes to India, their morale is so down that every day the posts I have been seeing coming from the Indian side on the Indian channels, it's like somebody has dictated to them that you have to put the videos related to how magnificent Indian equipment is, how magnificent and well prepared Indian military is. Well, they might be prepared when it comes to, of course, beating the innocent citizens of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They might be prepared to, of course, pick them up and beat them, and then later on conduct some encounters and show them as terrorists. They might be prepared for all of these heinous crimes. They might be prepared to be a rogue military, but when it comes to facing another military from across the border, of course they have miserably failed. And if they ever try to come back again towards Pakistan, of course Pakistan would be giving them a befitting reply. And when it comes to Modi's slogans on in all of these processions, I mean, I think I see a madman. I see a man, a kind of man who in the villages, when we used to play cricket between two villages, one of the village, if loses the match, of course, the next night they used to come to the ground and they used to dig up the whole pitch. Reason being, they couldn't win, and that is what is happening in today's India. Of course, Modi knows that he has miserably failed, and the kind of exit he wanted to see himself getting from Indian politics. He wanted to raise a flag that he was the most successful prime minister of India's history. But now the reason, why he is so stunned, he is still so shocked. He is someone who's not getting out of his own frame of mind, because he has realized that his whole efforts to, of course, create a new kind of generation in India, he has lost it. He has lost it big time.
And all praise to the Pakistan Air Force Shaheens, as they broke all all the box office records in India. Coming towards Ambassador Baloch, as we were talking about, a diplomatic and military win for Pakistan. India being a regional hegemon, and of course Pakistan, not just Pakistan, China and other countries of the world, they were calling for an independent investigation into the false flag operation as soon as India started with its aggressive posture and its propaganda. Of course, how significant of a win do you think for Pakistan in terms of a diplomatic arena? And secondly, a region that is focused on connectivity and progress and at the same time has to deal with a hegemon bully. How do you think it can be curbed and its ill hegemonic designs can be controlled as well?
In fact, that is the crux of at the strategic level, that is the crux of the issue. What India wanted to probably do was to emerge as a bully, to pretend to be a phony hegemon. They're not a hegemon. Hegemon is a title which not yet they have acquired and would not be able to acquire, I'm pretty sure, because there are forces and counter forces within the region and in the larger Asian continent. So I think that is not a correct categorization ever. Yes, this may be their aspiration and their dream, false dream. So now that, in my view, is the underlying thought process, that as we see a new world order is unfolding before us, and instead of unipolar world, there was a kind of a world which we see now in this stage being at least visible as if it will be led by bullies, by big talk, by big threats, by hating others, making this divide. So I think India has adopted that narrative, and that is exactly the self-contrived, I would say, big rat hole in which India finds itself today. And the other person who finds itself in this rat hole is Netanyahu in Israel. So these are two like big ego leaders. Unfortunately, they have at their disposal the destructive wherewithal of to, that is again a country or not a country, but at least in terms of India, he has this at his disposal. And unfortunately, in my view, Netanyahu is a danger to the peace in the Middle East. Likewise, Modi has emerged as a big threat to the peace and security in South Asia, in particular, and the global peace in general. So I think the world has to look at it. If we really want a conflict-free world, a world which is more to do with the business transactions than trading bullets and missiles, I don't think there is an appetite now in the world. There is simply none. And that is what another big miscalculation that India did. It thought that perhaps the world would welcome, world would cheer India, wow, great work. So I think those three major miscalculations that I have probably not articulated in your program, but I have been articulating, that India made three major strategic miscalculations. Number one, its own capacity to fight, which has been proven that neither they have the competence nor strategic thinking of waging a war. War is a big deal. It is not a skirmish, no, not at all. One. Second, it miscalculated the response or the reaction of the world. They thought they'll stand by us, but they were totally wrong. The world did not approve of their aggressiveness. They disapproved it. Even they did not believe their narrative that this terrorist, the incident happening in Pahalgam was somehow connected to Pakistan. The third and the most important was Pakistan's response and Pakistan's capacity to respond. I think these three major strategic miscalculations by Modi and his regime have brought them to this shame that we see today, unfortunately. They need to come out of that. They need to look back. They need to step back if they want a prosperous India, if they want a peaceful South Asia, and if they want to really play that big role. That is the positive way to go about. Not the way they can bully around a smaller neighbor and then use as a whipping child and then show to the world they are a big. No, not at all. That's not the way to do it. They are, in fact, ruining the very potential of the Indian people. That is why I keep saying Indian people have to rise against this righteous regime. Indian regime have to reject. The people have to reject this regime, which has only one, I think, prescription for all the ills of the society. Their own and the other is hate, otherness, communalism, and that all has to do. They have to listen the voice of reason, the way our prime minister articulates, the way our leaders are saying, come on, let's come and sit. Of course, it's not a weakness, but that is how a rational society acts. That is how a state is termed as a rational actor. So India, as was brought up by one of our colleagues, yes, India is no more a rational actor. It cannot be trusted with a nuclear power. It cannot be trusted with becoming a regional actor. Even it cannot be trusted to be member of Quad and other Western oriented these alliances. What if they turn around, use that so-called power that they might pretend to have it against the other countries apart from Pakistan? So the very purpose is defeated. So I think the world has to rethink about India. We have to rethink about India. And I think what has happened, of course, we knew this reality, but I think this reality takes a more, in my view, a new dimension, that how we will proceed with new way of defending ourselves. And I think the best that I could see today was a meeting, trilateral meeting, which has just now been convened in Azerbaijan, between Turkey, Pakistan, and Azerbaijan. That is how we should have a network of such rational actors, friends, allies who understand the value of peace, those who want to align with us, who really want to synergize in peace, not make military alliances. So I think that is how Pakistan probably need to respond to India. Obviously, internally, mashallah, our countrymen, our people have stood firmly, literally like an iron wall in front of this enemy. And I'm sure that was one of the reasons of our Fateh Mubin, or the victory that we got on the table. Thank you.
Definitely, the Pakistani nation stood like an iron wall, and so did Pakistan's allies and friendly countries. Thank you, Ambassador Jia Baloch. It's always lovely to have you on the show and have your valuable insights. Coming towards geopolitics, Raja Faisal, I'd like your quick take on, of course, Ambassador Baloch mentioned how there's massive developments with regards to diplomacy and the geopolitical landscape. In your views, the way forward for Pakistan?
First of all, when we talk about Pakistan's current situation in terms of, Pakistan's diplomatic ties, they have strengthened. they have strengthened not only with Pakistan's friendly countries, the other friendly countries, of course, even the Europe is seeking out to Pakistan, and the Muslim countries, they have strengthened more and more, regardless of any country it be it Iran, that is a neighboring country, be it Saudi Arabia, that is a brotherly country, and of course since the day one, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, they have shown it again and again that their friendship is undentable, because it's more of a brotherhood. And when it comes to of course Turkey and Azerbaijan, it is proving now, even during the war, they were standing like a wall with Pakistan, and they were simply saying, even the people, I mean, that is what you call the friendship, and that is what you call the diplomacy. When it comes to people relations between both of the countries, and all be it Turkey, be it Azerbaijan and rest of the countries of the Middle East, of course, even we could see the sentiment coming from the Muslim countries. And one of the diplomats from one of the Muslim countries, he happens to be a very good friend of mine, and he said to me that during this episode of war, of course, him and the other diplomats from the Muslim countries, they have created a WhatsApp group, and in that WhatsApp group there were openly they were talking about it, that Pakistan is at the right side, and we want our countries to stand with Pakistan. This is the level of course, Pakistan's stance today, and Pakistan's diplomatic stance, and the way Pakistan stood for its right. The whole world knows that India is 5 times bigger than Pakistan. India's India's defense budget is at the 4th number, is the 4th biggest country that actually spends on the arms. When it comes to Pakistan, Pakistan is at the 42nd number. When it comes to both of the populations of course, they are 6 times bigger than Pakistan. But what is the result? Here is Pakistan, fighting like a lion, roaring like a lion. Our missiles, they were roaring like a lion. And when it comes to India, I mean, I have said it in past, and I am going to say it again. They are fighting against Pakistan like a rat. Why I say rat? Because they are hidden somewhere, and rather than facing Pakistan like a man, they are sending in their own rats, the paid puppets like TTP, the paid puppets like BLA and BLF, and sending them to fight against Pakistan, because they are not men enough to fight against Pakistan when it comes to war, because they tested it and they miserably failed. And now that is why Pakistan is even Pakistan's war against these minnows didn't end. I mean, we know that Operation Operation Bunyanul Marsus, it ended, but Operation against Fitna al-Hindustan, it is continuing. It is continuing. Against Marka Haq is also continuing, and until these monsters on our Western Front of BLA, BLF and TTP, those who are getting fed, getting money, getting finances from Minnow India, unless they are grounded, they are vanished, Pakistan won't be stopping.
Well, Raja Faisal, adding up to the already embarrassment that India facing at the moment, Prof. Dafi, your take on, of course, Pakistan's way forward.
Right. Remember, Rafi, I'm son of a soldier, so I have great respect for any soldier, right? I'm not going to call any countries soldiers or rats. I think that ours were better, and they have
I was referring to their politicians.
Okay.
Modi.
Okay. We have proven it in warfare that we are better, but doesn't mean that I'm going to actually resort to name calling. But there are a few things that WhatsApp thing actually reminded me of something that we have been encountering on TikTok. On TikTok, there's this meme called Kaka Man, right? Where Pakistan or any country's flag is there, another country actually stands with it and confronts India and calls it names, right? So what was so pleasing, and if I start praising and appreciating the countries that stood with Pakistan, and one by one people from those countries would say that include our flag also, right? From South Korea to Saudi Arabia to Russia and whatnot, right? There are 189 countries. You can take out only 3 countries that one cannot thank. One is India itself. Afghanistan's name somehow was included on the other side, and then the third one was Israel. Right?
Yeah.
Either you are part of the solution or you are part of the problem.
Yeah.
So far, Pakistan was perceived as part of the problem, India as solution, but India has, through its irrational conduct, India has shown that it is part of the problem, not the solution. So automatically we become the solvers rather than the problematic kind, right? I am, earlier Ambassador Saab was talking about world order, new world order, right? I have, there are 2 terms, because I am a huge follower, a very committed follower of Karl Popper, right? And his philosophy, particularly his approach to history and empirical sciences. So my biggest concern is that I am really wary of terms like New World Order or historicism. History is chaotic and we try to actually add meaning to it, right, by building these constructs. My only humble problem is last time when I was talking about Kargil, at that time there was no WhatsApp, there was hardly social media, there wasn't any TikTok, right? The world has changed. So what we try to do is try to enforce the previous or olden, ideas onto the today's reality, which is totally inappropriate. The idea of decoupling, the idea of a Cold War is totally out of the window. It is totally bonkers. There is a very important report. Everybody should read it. It is called 2027, and it is about AI achieving AGI, artificial general intelligence, within next 2 years. So our challenges are going to be very drastically different than anything that we have seen in the past. We don't have the capacity or the ability to, or luxury to actually keep on fighting among ourselves. India is the odd one out. We are not going to be, right? But I want to actually deconstruct one analogy that every Indian uses. And by the way, let me remind you that the biggest damage that Modi ji could have done to India was the damage done to Indian diaspora. Indian diaspora all over the world has been beautiful part of the infrastructure of world, right? And they have been contributing beautifully over generations.
Yeah.
But what happened was that Modi ji and his supporters started, pressuring those people to actually align with India and lose their minds. Either they became, they fell out of favor or they lost their minds. And on the other side, if you remember that iconic event after Pahalgam in London, where there was protest, where a lady was saying that we have taken all your water, how are you going to make tea? At that time, there was this this rude guy who made a rude gesture, and then he was running away and police apprehended him. Then he opens his mouth. What comes out is garbled English. It is not British English. It is clear that he must be a Sanghi who has been exported to India, UK, right? So with that kind of elements actually coming up, the biggest problem is now you have people sitting in Saudi Arabia tweeting that when Islam falls, we are going to convert Kaaba to Durga's Mandir or something else, right? With that kind of mentality, people don't even realize where they are sitting while spewing such hate. This analogy I wanted to deconstruct: Gaza versus Israel, India versus Pakistan. This analogy is constructed for a reason, because all this settler colonialism in Gaza that is going on, it actually is something that India wants for Pakistan. And there is a term for it. Unfortunately, playbook is once again Nazi, and there was a term called Liberram, space to live. I'm concluding, the space to live. So exactly the same thing is being copied by India, or at least in their mind, while they realize that Pakistan is not Gaza, but they have to convince themselves. So with that kind of damage to Indian mind and diaspora, India is the biggest part of the problem right now.
Oh, definitely.
One liner. Farooq mentioned that lady who was in London, and she said that of course you won't be able to make tea because we are not going to give you water. Well, we will be making dudhpati out of cow milk, because in Pakistan we actually respect cows for milk, not anything else.
Well, definitely important points raised, and of course this is the kind of mentality that will have to be curbed. Of course, the hatred being promoted in India since very long, but it is what is contributing to the problem itself. Senior analyst Farooq Padafi and geopolitical analyst Raja Faisal, thank you both for your time, gentlemen, and being part of the conversation. With that, we conclude the debate for today. See you all same time tomorrow. Till then, take care.